Welcome to Legal AF Saturday. We're going to do Trumpanomics, my daily video where I analyze all the new developments that are surrounding and swirling around Trumpanomics, the good, the bad, the ugly, mainly the bad and the ugly. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF. This is Saturday. Let's get to the economic report, if you will, at the intersection of law, politics, and our global economy. I have the follow-up for Jay Powell's historic speech in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, as the Federal Reserve Chairman, surrounded by 40 other central bankers, and what it means for our economy and the inflation rates. I'm going to tie that to Wall Street now having to reject all government data as being unreliable, at least in the future, as soon as Donald Trump is done taking over the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which used to be the most accurate and respected economic and statistical bureau for data out there for all the financial services market, Wall Street, and the global economy. No more. But now private companies are being relied on to provide the data that fuels our economy because the Trump-led and Trump-controlled data can no longer be trusted. And then I want to end with this announcement that you and I now own a 10% share in an American chip manufacturer led by in Intel. One of 5 different investments Donald Trump has made with your and my money to own companies who don't need a bailout, but Donald Trump wants to claim some sort of victory and some sort of deal making with our money on his watch. I'm Michael Popok. Let's get to it. Let's start with the Wall Street, to the speech given by Jay Powell. Jay Powell is under a lot of pressure. The Federal Reserve, there's 7 members of the Board of Governors. Jay Powell is first among them as the chairperson. Those 7 members sit on what's called the Federal Open Markets Committee that meets every month to decide on rates. It's a blunt instrument, but it's the number one way and really the only way that the Federal Reserve, besides doing some policing around the money supply, monetary policy, and banks, it's really the only way that the Federal Reserve can impact our economy. And they have 2 goals as established by Congress. One is to increase jobs, right? To stabilize the job market and to make sure prices are as low as possible. But those things have to be balanced and calibrated because you can't have both. You can't have 100% employment and low prices. They just don't go together, because 100% employment means higher wages, more money in the system, higher prices. So you have to balance the 2 things. And that's the role of the Fed. And how do they do that? They do that with interest rates, setting the interest rate that banks charge each other, which then flows down to the interest rates for your credit cards, consumer debt, mortgages, student loans, and the rest. So now looking at a weakening job market and a up arrow on pricing, right? Consumer prices up, wholesale prices up, jobs down. What is the Fed, pardon me? What is the Fed going to do? So in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, after so much pressure against the 7 members who make up the Board of Governors, the 12 members that make up the Open Markets Committee that sets the rates, Donald Trump trying to go after Lisa Cook, who's on the Board of Governors, accusing her out loud of mortgage fraud and trying to have her get removed so he can change the dynamic of the 7-member Board of Governors and make it 4-3 Trumpers. And at one time pressuring Jay Powell to leave his job as the Federal Reserve Chairman earlier than May of 2026. Good news for the economy is Jay Powell's not going anywhere. And I don't believe Lisa Cook, who has her job until 2038, but so far in the distance, I thought it was like a sci-fi movie. 2038, she's not going anywhere either. And that's a good thing. So the Jackson Hole, Wyoming speech, which if you want to watch it in its entirety, I have it up on Legal AF YouTube under Live. Go to the tab marked Live, and you'll see we put it up yesterday. So here's the tea leaf reading. Most people on Wall Street believe, based on the speech and him talking about inflation up and jobs down and the need to balance and stabilize that he's going to be in favor of a small rate cut in September when they meet in the middle of September. But it'll be a small rate cut, not a point, not 1 full percentage point, but something more like a quarter or a half point. in the last 5 months, they haven't cut the rates at all because fundamentally, we are well above the 2% target inflation rate that the Fed is trying to manage to. We're heading towards 4%. So he's also got to worry about jobs. So even though he's been blasted by Donald Trump to cut the rates in half, I see him supporting and therefore getting the votes on the Open Markets Committee to cut it maybe 1/4 to 1/2 point. Wall Street certainly believes that because right after he gave that speech at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time on Friday, the market went crazy and went up 3-4%. So the market believes a rate cut is coming. Could he hold steady? Maybe. But I think that there's enough votes and enough comments made that maybe with a 1 or 2 objections, there's going to be a rate cut. And that will bring more money flow, more money supply into the economy because money will be cheaper and therefore will fuel investments and hopefully hiring. The problem is the hiring community, the managers, the business owners aren't hiring right now because they see a turbulent economy, a recession in the making, if not already there. Tariff pricing ending up with higher consumer prices and higher wholesale prices. So they've closed their sphincters, they've closed their hiring. And that's being reflected in the job market, which is shedding jobs, not growing. A recessionary economy that's not making more goods and services, it's making less. And those two things are at the forefront of Jay Powell's decision making. So that looks like it's going to be a rate cut, maybe 1, maybe 2, September and October, which of course Donald Trump loves because he needs cheap money to bail out his failed policies, certainly around the tariffs. Now we've got new reporting that Wall Street, which believes in trust is the foundation of finance, and that trust has been broken by the Trump administration because they're cooking the books when it comes to economic data. There are agencies and bureaus within the executive branch run by Donald Trump, which report on economic development and economic data, primarily the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They are the ones that issue the Consumer Price Index, the Wholesale Price Index, the job report that everybody waits for every month. Now, Donald Trump decapitated the head, lopped off the commissioner that ran, the chief economist and statistician that ran the Bureau of Labor Statistics, saying that he's going to install a partisan hack into that position. Now, that person hasn't been confirmed yet, so it's being run by an acting interim commissioner. But the reality is there's 2,000 economists that are still working there, banging away, and they're not going to do Donald Trump's partisan bidding. They take a lot of pride in being independent and the most independent and accurate set of statistics about the U.S. economy out there. So the September 5 jobs report that's coming out under the existing regime of economists. Donald Trump's probably not going to like it unless it's a huge number in his favor. Look at all the jobs I made. And then watch how quickly Donald Trump says, yay, the Bureau of Labor Statistics is finally doing their job. Yeah, I don't think so. So we've got that reporting. But the new reporting is that financial markets and Wall Street is basically now decided they need to turn away from the government-controlled data because it can't be trusted under Donald Trump. And Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, who already disadvantaged and defunded all things related to economic metrics and economic data when he first took office. He got rid of the Council of Advisors about economic data, fired them end of February, defunded, didn't hire, is not giving the Bureau of Labor Statistics what they need. And so what is Wall Street doing? They're turning away. And they're going to private entities. So if you've got a child that's looking for a successful career, I sound like an ad now, put them into the private industry doing financial modeling and statistics and data for Wall Street, because that's going to be the new gold standard, because we can't rely on the government anymore under Donald Trump, because they're going to be a bunch of liars and politically motivated numbers gatherers. So who's going to step into the fray? Well, it's going to be companies like Challenger and Gray and Christmas and the Institute for Statistics and Management, or the Institute for Supply and Management, and S&P Global, and all of these companies affiliated with big banks and small financial advisory firms that are going to be pumping out the data about pricing, about jobs, about the performance of our companies, because Trump can't be relied upon. See, that was the one nice thing. We were all on the even playing field because we relied on the government's numbers. That's over. That's done. He got rid of that. He took the reliability of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and he took it out in the back and shot it. Donald Trump. And now finally, I want to do an update about, I've called Make America Great Again. That's what he calls it. It looks like it's Make America Communist again, or for the first time, because Donald Trump is just doing a wholesale takeover of companies, businesses. I mean, country Republicans used to pride themselves on the fact that, Republicans were about business and big business and business doing the business of business. Donald Trump sees it as an opportunity to grab with our money and play Russian roulette with our money and invest it in companies to take an equity position. We now own 10% in Intel. Remember Powered by Intel, your computer chip manufacturer? They're not even manufacturers, by the way. They're designers. They manufacture the chips. They fabricate the chips overseas in South Korea and Taiwan. But we have three major two major and one struggling in America: NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel. We now own, as Americans, up to 10% of Intel and up to 15% if we want it in the future. With the money he took from the CHIPS Act that was passed by Congress, so it's an improper allocation and spend of government allocated money. What does that mean? Lawsuit is coming to challenge this and reverse this transaction. I mean, Howard Lutnick at Cantor Fitzgerald, he's all excited now. He's the Commerce Secretary with his arms folded. We got another deal. You go back to Cantor Fitzgerald. Go back to your family-owned office if you want to make investments. But you should not be making investments with taxpayer dollars to bail out companies like the auto industry in 2008 and the banking industry in 2009, where it took 10 years for us to get our money back, and it was a little dicey there with some of the banks. And spend our money. Spend your own money. Go raise money from the private sector, from people who are accredited investors who can afford it. And stop spending the nickels and dimes that everybody has to contribute and more in taxes and other things, and then go make your investment so you can stand there with your arms folded and go, another deal being made. Make your deals with your own companies. That's the problem with bringing in somebody like Scott Bessent to run Treasury, who used to be an investment advisor for George Soros and his own private equity firm, and Howard Lutnick that ran a family office that made investments, because they, along with Trump, they're just looking to make investments. That's not what's in the best interest of the American people or the American economy. Why do I need to own a chip manufacturer? Let the capital markets do their thing. Let capitalism do their thing. If Intel sucks, let me put it this way. If Intel sucks, let them merge out with NVIDIA and AMD or somebody else. And this is the company that Donald Trump was bashing mercilessly, and its CEO, Lip Bu Tan, and saying he had a close relationship with China. Great. We just went into a business with somebody that we just doubted whether he's loyal to America. So I'm here following it all as closely as I can on Legal AF. I'm glad you're here on Saturday afternoon. And every day, usually during the week, Monday through Friday, the first video is about Trumpanomics by me, Michael Popok. I got a Wall Street experience. Full disclosure, I used to work with Howard Lutnick, but I haven't worked there for quite some time. But I do use my own law and politics and Wall Street experience to bring you this kind of analysis here on Legal AF. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states. lawsuits and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.